This is the attendance link, guys. In case you were not aware what that is. So, and actually, the VAP for tonight, so you can get a chance to pull it down, assuming I push it to the catalog, right? Is this one right here, DefSec Solaris. Try pulling it down, and for the Solaris 10 box, which actually I'll just do it right now so I can demonstrate. Sure. So pull that one down, and we're going to have to make one change, I think, because, yeah.
I think you can modify it before you deploy it.
Oh, you're right, I probably should have done that. Oh, well. They probably deployed it, right? Oh, great, it's winding. Yeah, I am lucky. So I guess before you deploy it, yep, customized hardware. Scroll all the way, go all the way down to customized hardware, and for the Solaris 10 box, give it like 8 gigs of RAM, because why not? And then finish. And we'll see if that actually, and it's gonna wind because I didn't change the dang name, because that name already exists. So yeah, pull it down and upgrade the amount of RAM to 8 gigs, because Solaris has the greatest thing ever for Solaris 10. It's a Java GUI, and apparently 2 gigs of RAM in Java does not mesh well. Go figure. At least that's my guess. I'm not for sure on that one. So hopefully that'll fix the non-functional Java GUI issue with that particular one. But pull it down, upgrade the RAM, power it on, and do that while I'm going to just talk for a little bit. So what is Solaris? So in case you're not aware, Solaris does fall on the Unix side of things. It's not a Windows operating system, go figure. It was created by Sun Microsystems, which was purchased by Oracle. If you're not sure who Oracle is, they make Java, which is why, probably part of the reason why Solaris is such a flaming pile of garbage. So it was released in 1992. It was the successor to their Sun OS, which was a BSD-based operating system. So they took a BSD-based operating system and then replaced it with something based on, I was called System 5. It was another big Unix distribution about the same time period, but once again, something you're never going to really hear about today because it's been completely phased out. And it's tied closely with the SPARC processor architecture, something I didn't even remember or see anywhere until I looked it up when we were looking at Solaris like a month or two ago. So SPARC is not the same as x86 or ARM or anything like that. It is a completely different processor architecture. Solaris will run on your 64-bit, 32-bit systems, but it's kind of tied to both of those. It's also tied to SPARC. So keep that in mind that they're also working towards this different processor architecture, which is supposedly better at doing symmetric multiprocessing, which, as far as I'm aware, is just standard multiprocessing. And the whole entire processor architecture is also developed by Sun Microsystems, which might explain why Solaris doesn't quite seem to run very fast on normal 32-bit, 64-bit systems. Maybe it actually does run better on something like SPARC. So why do people not like Solaris so much? It's different, and that's probably the best reason, is nobody likes different things because, you know, we've worked with these Debian-based operating systems like Ubuntu and Debian, and even things like Arch Linux are similar. They have the same set of services. They have the same set of system utilities. Maybe the package manager's different. Maybe they would they use the repos, whether they're rolling release or they have like a stable release. Maybe that's different, but in general, they're kind of the same. Solaris is even farther away from the norm, depending on which version you have. I think they're starting to pull it in a little bit and make it a little bit more similar to the normal stuff. But it's definitely taking them time. So, which is funny because when I was setting up the operating system and the VApp for today, I was setting up everything on Solaris 11 versus Solaris 10. Solaris 11 actually fixes a lot of my standard gripes about Solaris in general. The first one is that it does use package. It's not the same as your standard FreeBSD package, but it does give you some of the same standard stuff. It gives you update, which updates all the stuff on your system. It gives you install. It gives you verify to verify if a package is correct. It gives you search. It gives you all those basic package manager functionality things that you would expect to have that are not present in Solaris 10. So Solaris 10 is probably what you're likely going to get in a competition setting or in any archaic thing, because Solaris 11 was actually released a little bit more recently, so it's a newer operating system. You're probably going to be less likely to find it because of that. So it is package add and package RM, and to install stuff, you essentially have to install from the CD. There's no online repos, not really. There might be at this point, but that's not really what you're going to find and be able to use. You're going to have to install from the CD. You can take a bundle and copy it off there and use it on the CD, but basically it boils down to it's not set up with the same online repository setup that you see in a lot of other distributions where we have a package manager that will go out and find these packages on the repository, pull them down and install them. No, it wants it on the CD, otherwise it's not going to work properly. Service management. So in a lot of other stuff, we've worked with service and system CTL for system D and sys5 init. And there's some stuff with upstart too, which uses the same two commands, or li system getter anyway. We don't have those. That's another big change with Solaris is we have SVC admin and then a couple other commands that are associated with that. So we can use this to enable stuff, disable stuff, restart it as kind of standard. SVCS is basically the same command, but it does status. So it's equivalent to service status, system CTL service whatever status, system CTL status, what name of whatever you're doing. They put in a different command, don't know why. They want to be special. And I'll show you kind of the weird stuff for the next two commands. Where other operating systems, you're going to have stuff stored in like etc systemd or etc init.d for where your actual startup files are going to be that designate when stuff's going to start up, what kind of run level it's going to run at, and then how it's going to start down and all the associated stuff with that. Instead of that, have it kind of that file system. I don't know how they actually store it, but how you're supposed to use it is essentially through these commands, which will just kind of throw configuration information at you, and then you're supposed to modify these keys that go back into their database or whatever. So it's a lot less useful to access. There probably is some way to access the files directly, but you're not supposed to do it that way. You're supposed to do it however Solaris says, and that's what they're kind of doing it with. So package managers was my first main gripe, which is something they fixed in Solaris 11. Service management still kind of meh, and then we have firewalls. So previously we talked about packet filter. That was the one we went over when we went over FreeBSD systems. Packet filter does ship with 11.3, which was released in March 2018 for Solaris. So that fixes that, but that was March 2018. Sorry to tell you this, but we don't give you new stuff when you go to competitions. We only give you old things, in general, and that's true in the industry as well. I mean, we don't. I would be surprised. You don't go out and find me a company that uses the Arch Linux for their servers, the newest rolling release stuff. That's not that's not a thing businesses do. That's not a thing that companies do. They take their operating systems and they want them to be stable. They don't really necessarily want the newest stuff. They might want the newest stuff, but they're aware that if you try to run the newest stuff consistently, it's going to break and it's going to fail, and that's why you take this more stable distribution stuff. So you might be able to find stuff, but it's going to be less likely. You're probably going to get something older, and that's why we have to deal with IP filter, which is the premier firewall that ships with Solaris 10 and everything before Solaris 11.2 or 11.2 and before. I do believe on some of the 11 you can probably install packet filter, so you can still get that same functionality, but that takes time to do. And in a competition setting, or just in any setting, it might be more difficult to do that than just use the built-in firewall. So saying that, we're going to try to get into this. So let's open up our VApp, which actually here, I will try to use the one that we deployed from the catalog. Unfortunately, as I was saying, the Solaris 10 VM has some interesting issues, which we're going to figure out if I can fix in 30 seconds. If not, I'm going to revert to a working one I have. Solaris 11 works fine, which is cool. Once again, the newer Solaris does appear to be working better. That one does not appear to have a default desktop environment. You get a console. That's what you get, which is what you'd expect from most server-based stuff. Is we're not going to give you a GUI. If you want a GUI, install your own GUI. We'll give you a console. Unless Solaris 11 also has a GUI now, which would be actually is possible now I think about it. Let's find out. We're going to pop that one for grub, and we're going to pop Solaris 10. Nick, does it have a GUI? And it just lied to me?
I thought it might, but I hit enter and then it went to a weird console.
Yeah, same thing here. Okay. Yep, that sounds about right. Oh gosh. Okay. Yep. Yep. Nope. Yeah. Now it's starting to display manager. Ooh, this will be interesting. Nope, it's learned the GUI. I think. There we go. Yep.
It's fine. It's just the mouse doesn't work.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. You can right click, but you can't move the mouse at all.
So we're gonna try to log into this GUI for Solaris 10. Is what we're doing right now. Which is interesting because I'm actually not sure that Solaris 11 doesn't have a GUI. We're just. Oh wait. I'm assuming.
Mouse doesn't work.
Oh. Okay. That's funny. I wonder why that is. So, once again, Solaris Engineering. Yeah, but it's not going to let me get tab. Okay, gosh. Yeah. So, guys, we have Solaris 10. It exists. The mouse does not work. Yay.
You can right click and then use your mouse.
Oh, gosh. Yep. I remember this now. Yep. Oh, my gosh. I really wonder why it doesn't work. I'm assuming, obviously, it works in, the regular environment. It must have something to do with VMware and how they set that whole thing up. So we already got farther than I would expect for that. First thing, well, here, let me get out of that. First thing to note, guys, and this was changed once again Solaris 11, which we're probably going to pop back over to in a second. Solaris 10, the default shell, is Bourne shell, which if you've ever tried using that versus Bash, it's less fun. Not normally a big deal, but I would suggest switching to Bash just because I think everyone who's done Linux admin stuff has been doing it in Bash, or ZSH, which is derived from Bash, or Fish, which I think is much closer to Bash than it is to shell. Correct me if I'm wrong. So we're actually gonna shelve that. We have Solaris 10. It works, and then we're gonna pop back to Solaris 11 and do some stuff on that one. Mostly just because okay, that's what I was wondering about. Okay. I was curious about whether this is actually going to load or not. We're going to do general package stuff on this one because the package manager actually works in Solaris 11, where if we want to do in Solaris 10, we'd need that CD stuff, which is not currently in there. Okay. It's rebooting on me. It's like Windows updates, but different. So, okay. Probably going to shove that for a minute. Hopefully that... Actually, I'll just... Let me see if my other one's working. I'm assuming you guys are having the same problems I am. Or worse problems. But, you never know. Okay, never mind, I have... Well, that's my Solaris 10 that actually works. Now let's try my Solaris 11. Okay, that looks good. Oh, is that one broken too? So Solaris 11 did reboot on me. We're going to check Solaris 11, and then if not, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Okay, I do have a console. Cool. Hopefully you guys have managed to get a console on a Solaris 11. I don't remember getting that one before. Cool. The sad thing is I did configure this box, and I made the DSU user account, but I forgot about it.
I don't know why we can't log into it.
I'm going to be honest, saying you can't log in as root by default is not that odd of a thing. It kind of makes sense if you're a little deranged, but yeah. So we have, okay. This is going to happen about another 3 times as far as those windows popping up. Sorry, guys. Cool. Okay. Yeah, and then just sudo root because root is nice and fun. We don't have to type sudo in front of every command we want to run. So let's look at package first, which, as a reminder, package is only here on Solaris 11. That's the only time we get it. Actually, before we do that, just cd to root and run this variant of the auth script because utilities are different on Solaris, and it's going to yell at me, I bet, because I think I typed my password wrong. Yeah, so normally you'd have headers for the auth script. We don't have those because read-p doesn't do what it normally does in Solaris. It doesn't give you a prompt. It does something different. And it's already looking like we're not going to have auth. Cool. Okay, there goes... Okay, DNS is broken. Great. I wonder why, though. let's look at this briefly. Oh, something else to note, guys. And this is going to be the baseline for using Solaris. Any command you expect it to run a certain way, it's not going to work that way, because the utilities are different. So your standard stuff might, like ls is going to work how ls works. CD is going to work how CD works. Netstat, ifconfig, chpassword. None of those utilities are going to work how you expect them to work. They're all going to work slightly differently. For example, ifconfig, you would expect to give you the interfaces. It just yells at you. You have to do a -tac A to give you all the interfaces, because normally you type ifconfig to give you the name of the interfaces, but it expects you to already have the interface name before you run ifconfig. That way you can do ifconfig the name of the interface. Solaris. So, yeah, just checking that quick here. We don't, that's interesting. Didn't expect that to happen. No, that's what it's, so it actually configured us with I am missing an interface is what that is. What is going on there? Oh no, I just configured it wrong. That is my bad. That's my bad. You guys probably don't need to do this. Yours won't work, sorry to say, but that's probably okay for the moment. This is actually my fault. Apparently, I meant to configure Solaris 11 to have 2 interfaces. I configured Solaris 10 to have 2 interfaces. So the reason it doesn't have internet is because I never connected the internet to the box. So that one is my bad. So wait till that one updates. And then we're just going to demo, I'm just going to demo package, I'm going to demo kind of service stuff, and then I'm going to demo the firewall, assuming the firewall works properly, and then that's going to be Solaris. So might be a little bit of a short night today. Okay. Let's try one more time. ifconfig, we're going to check. And yep, so in addition, something to notice, does anybody have an idea why it's giving me 2 interfaces for every single one? Any guesses? Somebody say something? Chris, say something? You're just looking at me.
What was the question?
Oh, you're not paying attention. Okay. Yeah. Okay, well, actually, never mind. You're only giving me 2 loopback. No, it's giving me 2. No, actually, that's wrong.
V4 and V6.
Hmm?
It's IPv4 and V6.
Well, yeah, that's why. Yeah. So which is weird because this is an internal. No, this is vCloud. Is vCloud serving IPv6 addresses now? Hmm?
I don't think vCloud is.
Oh, you're right. It doesn't need to. You're right. It's IPv6. You're right. Yeah. So whatever. It's okay. Solaris is forward thinking. We gotta get the IPv6 in there. So whatever. To make it worse, it's also showing me IPv6 stuff, which, in general, we try to ignore that it's even there. But I think I have my 172 is there. Which reminds me, internal will be broken no matter what because of other reasons. So that's, I forgot about that. That's going to be broken too. Okay, so I have that though. Hopefully my auth script works. We're going to do this one more shot, and then otherwise I'm just going to show you the commands and we'll say they work, even though they don't. So. Which is okay because that's normally how I would expect things to go with Solaris, is everything's broken and on fire. So. I think it's going to throw an error at me. Yeah, it should have ran by now. Okay, that's okay. So just to start going over, we have package, as said. We have package for our main package manager, Solaris 11. Package has a couple of commands, which you're already starting to see here. We have install, we have uninstall, we have update, we have list. We have everything you guys would kind of expect. So example, we run package list. You can kind of guess that's going to give us like a list of packages that are currently installed in the system. So Solaris 11, we do have that. It formats it slightly different. It kind of has its subdirectories of what's going on here. For example, if you see, if you look all the way up here at the top for web, we have web server Apache, and then we kind of go into the subdirectories with all that. So it does kind of categorize it and package it in the way that it does. But that's not that big of a deal. So normally, if the internet was working, which unfortunately it's not, you would just do package install nmap, and that would install you nmap. Same thing goes for tree, everything else. Verify might work, so let's try that. What do I want to break? Let's break wget, because I see that actually exists. So we're going to try breaking wget and seeing if it'll verify properly or not. Okay, so we just broke wget, and now we're going to try running package verify on wget, which I did test this, although I'm not quite sure if Verify is going to need an internet connection to check that or not. Something else to note about package is package, not the fastest package manager we've ever had some time to do with. Yeah, so it'll throw you that. So if you run it against a package and it's been tampered with, you're going to get an error just like that. You could try running, like taking a package list and then piping that into package verify to try to verify every single package in your system. It probably will take the entire competition or whatever period of time. It's going to take a long time for that to actually go. So that's probably, unfortunately, not going to work so well. You're going to have to pick your couple packages that you're concerned about. Sudo, su, password, your standard stuff they're going to Trojan. That's the stuff you want to prioritize verifying. You're not going to have time to verify the entire system. There's probably some other commands stuck somewhere, but they're not readily accessible. So besides that, we have update, and then we have search as well. Once again, everything's probably going to throw, it's some timeout because the internet connection's not working this one. So not much else to package. On Solaris 11, it's very straightforward. For Solaris 10, if we had a CD popped in that one, it'd be as simple as package add. Once again, name of whatever it's going to be. That will not work, unfortunately. Well, first of all, because we're on Solaris 11. Second of all, because you need to have a CD mounted, and you're essentially drawing from that CD when you're doing stuff on Solaris 10. So that's how that one's going to go. Let's talk about SVC. So SVCS, as said, as we kind of talked about, is just the status. So if I do it for SSH, which is how it bundles that, it's going to give me the status of the SSH service. So online, the time, and it's kind of little, not exactly URL, but still identifier for what that service is for it. We have several options we can do with SVC admin, really just disable, enable, and restart. So if we do that, we can disable the SSH service, check it again, and now it's disabled. So that just brought that one offline. Same thing kind of goes, enable it. It's pretty typical for what you'd expect to have. So this is where the weird stuff starts to happen. So if you notice, we actually do have an xinit.d, but it's really only being used for compatibility reasons. We have sendmail in here and account in here, and that's it. So most of your base services you're going to have to manage with, or you can attempt to manage them. It's probably not going to go over well. If you do SVC prot in the name of service, it's going to spit out, essentially a set of key pairs, which actually those aren't even exactly key pairs. It's going to show you a ton of configuration information for what the service is actually doing. You can probably determine some of that just by looking at it. Stop, for example, here at the top, like about the 5th line down, we have stop exec, let's do stop timeout seconds count 60. So we're assuming you try to stop it, it'll wait 60 seconds, and then it'll take us some other action at that point. So you can kind of decipher some of these keys. To actually do a lot with these, you'd probably have to get into them. Thankfully, we don't care a lot about that for defending stuff. For sysadmin, if you're trying to create a whole entire service in Solaris, that's probably going to be what you care about a little bit more. For us, we just really care about the service is running or it's not running, and then maybe it's going to restart or boot or not. And I believe disable will actually, and that's something I'm not quite sure about. We'll test that here in a little bit. Whether disable will stop and unboot. So we have all these things. If we want to do it, we do SVC conf. If we actually want to edit them. Actually, yeah, that's interesting. I did not have that issue before. Oh, it's config. That's why. My bad. Without dropping this little thing, and if you do a help, kind of get an idea of we have all these commands we can use to modify these configuration files. And that's kind of the idea of this, is it's supposed to be this database that is much easier to modify, much easier to take snapshots of and modify it as instances, and theoretically be nicer to work with than like standard files. And that's kind of the database mentality, is that we have this database we can make changes to and have a lot more operations than just edit the file and reload. So that's the view for that. I'm not going to get too much into that because that gets really complicated really fast. So that's what we have for service management. We're going to briefly jump over to our firewall rules here in just a second. Before we do that, I'm going to illustrate something. So for our password change script, we normally use chpassword. That is the utility we use to change passwords. Unfortunately, does not exist in Solaris. Something else we also try to do is we try to use password, and we'll try to essentially shove stuff into it for standard in. So we essentially take password, we try to shove standard into password and emulate a user typing it over and over again. Oh, gosh. Fortunately, there's not really any way to do that with password in Solaris either. That's an option that's not there, as far as I'm aware. At least on Solaris 11, however, does have, let's see if I can find it quick here, something that we might implement here in the password change scripts, which will be changed before next year, likely in the next week here as I'm modify them up. So Solaris does have an option. This isn't the one you used, Nick, was it? You didn't actually use the password command for a password change script for Solaris, did you? No. So this is something, I don't know if this is in Solaris 10 or not. I'll have to check. If you use password-p, if you create the password hash, it will place it into the shadow file for you, which is, I think, slightly nicer and a little bit less likely to break the entire system. There is a security issue because, as it states, the very last line of that if we run it really fast, it will be briefly visible in the process listing because the command will be in the process listing, so it'll briefly have the password hash. So as long as Red Team isn't like outputting PS constantly to a file, or they can just have the photographic memory to remember like a 20-character password for the half a second it's visible in PS, you're probably going to be okay in general. So that's basically how we have to change passwords for a large password script, is we have to hash it manually, and then in this case we can give it to password and it'll automatically put in the shadow file for that particular user account. That's what we have to do. We have to hash the password manually. We don't have any other options for Solaris. For Solaris 10, I'm actually going to check right now. We're going to see if that option is even... This is not the right Solaris. Oh, no, it is. It gave me a screensaver. Thank you, Solaris, for saving my virtual screen. The monitor would have burned out if you didn't do that. Actually, let's check here. If this is also here. Oh, no, I don't think it is. Yep. It was -R, wasn't it? Oh, it was -P, my bad. That wasn't a good sign. Here. Great. Okay.
We used OpenSSL.
Oh, to generate for the hashing. Yeah. So on Solaris 11, we can use password-p to generate the password hashes. I'll probably write that up at some point. For Solaris 10, there's a script up there. It is broken. We're going to have to modify that. That'll be fixed over the next couple of weeks. We're going to have to use OpenSSL to manually generate the password hash and then rewrite the shadow file dynamically, because that's really the only way to do mass password changes requests. So that kind of sucks, but that's what it is. And a lot of this kind of focuses on one core thing, and that's Solaris is really annoying to use. And the funny thing about Solaris is that while you're going to have a really bad time using it, Red Team is also going to have a terrible time using it as well. It's actually quite funny because I remember asking a Red Teamer at Nationals what they did to the Solaris box, and they just we opened it and didn't touch it because it was Solaris. No one wants to use Solaris, not even Red Team. So. But they might take the time to do so, especially if they know it's going to be there. So that's that for Solaris. We're going to look at password, or not password, we're going to go to firewalls a little bit. So let's close down all these Solaris 11s, and let's just have a Solaris 10, and I'm actually going to grab the other one if I can find it. Because I'd rather have a actual virtual terminal than the abomination GUI thing. So as I was saying, Solaris 10 uses IP filter instead of PF. So that's what we have to work with. So more demonstrations to actually enable that surface. It's going to, yep. Got to have the shorthand. So we do that, we check, we enable the service, and let's just check to make sure it's running quick here. And it's, oh no, it didn't. This might be problematic. Okay, IPF. Okay, so this one's broken because this is maintenance mode. Ignore that. That's completely unrelated to anything, actually. Which I think it is. I'm not quite sure. I'm pretty sure that one's unrelated. That one was loaded in maintenance mode because I was having issues with this godforsaken GUI. So, unless I did something wrong and Nick saw it or not. Okay, let's look here. Okay, there we go. So for these, you have to enable the firewall. Firewall's not on by default, like we have to turn it on. That's all I'm doing there. Which actually, is that big enough for you guys to actually see it or not? Probably not. Yeah. So SVC admin enable IP filter. We enabled the firewall. That's a good idea. Now we have to write the firewall rules. Like PF, it kind of follows the same spec of we write a file and then we reload from the file, and that's how we manage it. We don't have it in memory, we modify it in memory, and then we output it to save it, and we restore it back when we reboot. We just have it in a file, and we always load from that file, which does make a bit more sense than the IP tables method for just normal administration stuff. The reason why I once again, one of the reasons why I rag on Solaris Firewall is because it's weird and I don't fully understand it, even after I took the time to try and look it over. It has some weird stuff going on, but let's try to work with it anyway. It kind of follows the same syntax. So we have either pass or we have block. Those are the main two options we really have for dealing with packets. There's some other keywords you can kind of throw in here, but those are your two main headers. So pass or block, that's our first two. So if we want to pass, we pass and then we have to state the direction, which is going to be in. So we want to pass in. And now this is normally where you're going to specify the interface name, which I'll do just for safety's sake. Yep. Really nice, easy interface name to type, of course. And I forgot the on. There we go. So we're passing in on this interface. That's what that would do by default. Let's actually see if that will throw an error by itself, because it's not. It might, because it's not quite enough. For commands, -E will enable. That should do the same thing as SVC admin enable. You shouldn't have to run both. It should be one or the other. Probably SVC admin's probably the better bet. -F will flush all rules. Actually, that's not true. -F will flush. You have to specify what you're flushing. In this case, if you do -I, it'll be input. Or you do O, it'll be output. You do A, just like that, it'll be all rules. So before you reload, you're going to have to flush them again, which we're going to have to actually check to see whether this is going to work or not. Yeah, lowercase f will load from a file. But if you notice, it's going to yell at us if we try doing it again. That's because we already have rules loaded in there. I don't think it actually it won't flush when you do lowercase f. You have to actually use capital F to flush it, and then you have to do lowercase f every single time you load it back in. So if we just do that. Yep, got to have a little lowercase a there. There we go. So that's basically the command you're going to have to run to reload IPF every single time. So, which, if you notice, my rules did work. So currently, if we just review that, all we have loaded in here is just pass in on this interface. So that's all it's going to do. By default, it will pass in. So a keyword you're probably going to be using quite often, just because it makes things a lot simpler on this one, is quick. We previously talked about quick. It's kind of the same thing. When it hits quick, it'll automatically just end. That's where it's going to end. It's the same kind of functionality where IP tables, where it's the first rule that it hits is the one it takes versus the last one. They're supposed to have that opposite functionality where an IP filter, it'll keep checking until it hits the last rule, and whichever rule got applied last is the one it'll take. Not having a good time with that, so we're just going to use quick. So passing quick on, so we're just going to say from any to any, and I'm going to specify port equal 22, keep state. So just make sure I typed that correctly. I did. Okay. Same thing kind of goes. We can specify from just from who we want to talk to any who we want to talk to. You don't really, in this case, because we're passing in, we don't really care about the to because we know it's us. So you can probably ditch that. But the from any, and then we can specify the port, assuming we have, which is actually funny because there's no protocol specified here, which is something that's kind of weird that you normally wouldn't expect, but is here. I'm not actually sure if it supports any of the protocols besides TCP and UDP. I'm not quite sure if it also supports the ISDP. You might just not specify the protocol. I would have to look that up. I'm betting it probably does somewhere, though. So this is kind of the standard rule. This will automatically, the first time we hit it, it'll accept that. So if we do this, and then we do block in all, and then we do block out all, that should work. Unfortunately, I think my network's messed up now, so I probably can't even communicate with the other boxes. Let's try here and see how broken. Yeah, I bet I can't communicate with Debbie and Nate. Which, doesn't want to I bet you it will not work. Anyway. I bet you the network's messed up, which is my bad, but. Yep, it's messed up. Okay. So we're not going to do that. So we're not going to get a chance to test it, but it should work. Oh, I am all over the place. Oh gosh. Okay. So we're not going to get a chance to test them, but they're there, and this should work. So same thing goes if we wanted to, and actually, it doesn't matter because their last one's being applied, but you probably want to put quick here. Quick does have to come, quick and any of the keywords have to come right there after you specify the direction you're passing. So we did that, we're just changing it to quick. It doesn't really matter since the last one's in the chain anyway, but you might as well have it there. So for example, if we wanted to have HTTP and HTTPS access, we do this. We pass out from any to any, port equals a keep state. Or just paste that one and then modify the port number right here to get that. And that's all you got to do for those. Currently, these will be doing any protocol, so if you specify here, before I'm going to check this, make sure this is correct before I get into this. You can specify the protocol. I do not remember if it's right there or not. It's right there. Okay. So we can also specify the protocol, which is obviously something we want to do. If we're allowing 80 outbound, there's no reason to allow 80 UDP outbound. I honestly, it could be potentially a problem. It's less likely. If you have 80 outbound at TCP, they're probably going to use that anyway. But something to keep in mind, you want to restrict it as much as possible. Another good keyword, which hopefully this will work here. Let's try doing this. I'm actually not quite sure if this will work or not, but let's try it. Okay, actually, yeah, this might not work here. We'll try this. This is probably gonna fail. Yep. I'm pretty sure I need to have, actually, which is, I think I might have misplaced the quick on the last two anyway. Yeah, no, okay, it doesn't like that. Okay. Does it actually like my log though? Does it like my placement of log in that statement? Syntax error, quick, okay. I think it's because those keywords are actually incompatible. No, it just doesn't like that entire thing. So the way you're actually supposed to do it would be something a little bit closer to this. Let's make sure that works. Yep, that works. Okay. So we can use the log keyword. Yeah. So we can use the log keyword to automatically log the stuff. We can use ipmon to check if what's actually in those rules. Because I have a Solaris box where basically nothing is going on, I have no logs. And I would try to open up another terminal, but in this GUI, I'm concerned that's not. Oh, I'm actually able to do this. Let's try this. I'm not going to be able to get back to this terminal though ever. Okay, it didn't spawn new terminal for some reason. That's fine. But that's kind of what you would do for this kind of system. Hopefully you'll never have to deal with Solaris. You might though, specifically because for our long form mocks, I now want to put it in there. So if you're around next year, I'm gonna shove it in somewhere just so other people can enjoy it too. I'm gonna make sure it's there. So that's really all I got to talk about Solaris. Any specific questions? I'm assuming we have none, but. Nick, any questions about Solaris and all of its beauties and why it is a terrible operating system? If you want to see something else that's cool, just before we end here, the users are really funny. Here. No, they're not as good as. There's still some weird ones. Nobody 4, but they're not nearly as. They're not nearly as weird as this is. So something let's see if I can pop this open quick and do this just before we end, because I'm really interested with some of these. There we go. These are much better. The best one in here, if I can see if it. Yeah. So if you notice, it has an open LDAP user built into the base operating system. So by default, it is made to be connected to Active Directory. Solaris, by default, Solaris 11 is made to be connected to Active Directory. And a lot of other weird stuff, apparently. What the? Why is there nobody? Okay, it's nobody 4s for NFS anonymous access user. I'm actually curious now. 1 minute here. Okay, and it also is RPC running by default. I actually didn't know that. Keep that in mind, that also it is set up to run NFS by default as well. So that's always fun. That's all I have for Solaris today. Any questions, please ask them. Otherwise, I'm going to close up.
Why would people use Solaris instead of more conventional things?
So one is that it does have its Spark processor architecture. It is specifically built to run on Spark. And ironically, I don't think there's any competition on that particular processor. So if you have the equipment or you've purchased the equipment because maybe Solaris actually does run decently on that equipment, and maybe there's some applications where it actually will run properly. A really good reason why you'd probably run Solaris is if you want to run an Oracle database, because Solaris was made by Oracle, and Oracle MySQL is made by Oracle. So there is actually some applications which are likely made and tailor-made to run on this sort of operating system. That's really the best reason I have for you. I don't know who actually uses Solaris. I'm sure people do. It's also might be one of those operating systems where it was more conventional 5 or 10 years ago. It was a little bit more mainstream, and now when we have more things like CentOS, it's getting less and less conventional, and it's falling a little bit behind. But I wouldn't know. I'd have to check who actually uses Solaris and why they're actually running that instead of, like CentOS. So
Apparently, Spark can use up to 4,000 cores.
That's why. Okay, that would make sense. So if you ever need a single system to run 4,000 cores, this is apparently the operating system to do it on. Of course, normally, we're like, I hit the 36 core mark on a single system. I feel like that's enough. Apparently, Solaris is like, no, we got to use more. The only other reason, so if you're doing anything like batch processing where you have X number of users on one single system, perhaps, but normally those are done by more HPC style systems where you have a big cluster of systems and you queue up a job to run across those versus on one system that has 4,000 cores. So there might actually be some legitimate reasons, but they're seeming perhaps fewer or a little bit more conventional than one would expect. So, any other questions? Okay, let's wrap it up. I believe we're going to have one more meeting for the rest of the year, Nick. We got one left? Yeah, so we're not going to meet during finals week. We will have next week where it'll be... what are we doing next week, Nick? I don't remember.
Talking about our plans for next year, but you guys are going to be good.
That's funny. So Nick will be here. Me and Mike will not be here because we will be at Nationals. So you guys get to talk behind our backs for the entire talk. So that should be pretty fun. So, okay. Have a nice night, guys.